U.S. struck another 90 targets inside Iran, from missile launchers to runways. 2 rail bridges were targeted, which the U.S. said were used by Iran to transport weapons. State media reported explosions in Bushehr, home to a massive nuclear facility. But a U.S. official said the targets were on the coast. The nuclear plant was never hit. 14 people reportedly killed, 9 of them members of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, all in the aftermath of 3 commercial tankers struck by Iran while transiting the Strait of Hormuz.
That was a deliberate provocation. Iran had to have anticipated the United States' response.
The Gulf Cooperation Council calls the attacks a violation of international law. Still, Iran remains defiant. Its parliament speaker posting, "The Strait of Hormuz will only open with Iranian arrangements, not American threats."
Make no mistake, that diplomatic bluster from the Iranians is a sign of desperation, a sign of trying to quell the growing factions within the regime itself. The mullahs are panicking. The ceasefire is over. And the United States military has just smashed 170 Iranian military targets in under 72 hours. Welcome to the new phase of the Iran war, and it's the most devastating phase yet. Stick with me to the very end of this live stream, because today we're going to break down exactly what CENTCOM just did to the IRGC, coast by coast, city by city, why Kuwait and Bahrain are now officially joining the fight, and why the mullahs' most elaborate display of power, the grand funeral of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was turned into a scene of panic and chaos and, frankly, embarrassment. The regime is weaker right now than it has ever been. And one way or another, they are indeed coming to a final and decisive end. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I'm your host, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of all the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. As always, our super chats are up, so please feel free to send in your comments and questions. It'd be my privilege, my honor to answer them right here on this live stream. I've been away. Your Patriot Professor's been away for a couple of weeks, so it's great to be back in the studio with you. We got so much to cover, but first I have to admit, I get pitched your typical get rich quick schemes just about every week from companies that want to advertise on this channel. And be assured, I frankly ignore virtually all of them. But a few weeks ago, a friend of mine named Jay told me about something that absolutely blew my mind. Not a Wall Street play, not some gimmick, not another scheme cooked up by the globalist class to separate you from your money. This is something everyday Americans can do, and its profits are actually backed by government statute and secured by real American property. The returns are not set by the market. They're not set by the Fed. They're actually set by law. The law, in effect, guarantees your yield. And you can get started with as little as $50. I kid you not. Now, here's the thing. I was skeptical, as I usually am. So I didn't ask Jay to explain it. I told him to prove it. I said, don't give me a slideshow. Do it. Actually show us how it's done live, in real time, in front of my entire audience, so they can watch the whole thing with their own eyes. And he agreed. So on Tuesday, July 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, Jay is hosting a free live masterclass, and he's going to buy a real tax lien live right on the call, start to finish, nothing hidden, and show you exactly what he does to tap into a quiet, steady, law-based strategy that lets hardworking patriots build real wealth on their own terms. I mean, you're going to see the entire process step by step with your own eyes. He's going to show you exactly how the strategy works. He's going to explain why these financial returns are set by law and not by the market. And he's going to show you how to get started with very little time and very little money. Again, we're talking $50. Now, this happens only once, live in real time. When it's done, it's done. So go to turleyclass.com to lock in your spot. That's turleyclass.com, or just text Turley to 72,000. That's 72000, or you can scan the QR code right there on the screen, tap send, and you're in. Again, it's Tuesday, July 14th, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you in the masterclass. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. We are officially in day 4 of the resumption of the Iranian war, and frankly, it's more devastating than the regime could ever have imagined. U.S. forces are absolutely smashing targets throughout the nation, leaving the regime shell-shocked. Now, as you may know, this is all in response to Iran's attack on 3 commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz back on Monday. Iranian state media ran its standard operational script that it's been running for 47 years. They're claiming Iran alone determines what routes tankers, supertankers, ships can take through the Strait of Hormuz. And the Oman route is not allowed. Oman is off limits. You have to go through Iran's approved routes and only with Iran's stated permission. Now, U.S. forces, of course, said, yeah, right. Those days are over. Go ahead and choose whatever route you want. The strait is wide open. And so when 3 tankers chose to pass through the strait by way of Oman, Iran attacked them. And the response by U.S. forces has been swift, and it has been absolutely brutal. According to CENTCOM, U.S. forces hit back harder than any previous single engagement response in this entire conflict. Night 1, 80 targets struck near Bandar Abbas and Kish Island, the primary source of Iranian maritime harassment throughout this entire conflict. Night 2, CENTCOM came back harder, and the strike package expanded geographically. So new cities, new facility types, new categories of military infrastructure never previously targeted: Iran Shar, Kanarak, Chabahar, Bushehr, and a facility in northeastern Iran. In fact, Chabahar is the key here. It's Iran's only deep water port with direct access to the Indian Ocean, the one geographic workaround that lets the regime conduct maritime commerce without going through Hormuz. CENTCOM just struck it. U.S. forces have effectively disabled it. Note, this is not a retaliatory response measured to match the provocation of hitting those commercial vessels earlier this week. This is a methodical, geographically expanding campaign to eliminate every naval option Iran possesses until no maritime infrastructure capable of threatening commercial shipping remains. This is what is so key to understand with these strikes. The United States is not defending the Strait of Hormuz anymore. U.S. forces are now actively and effectively and intentionally dismantling Iran's entire coastal military architecture. And the results speak for themselves. Over 60 IRGC boats gone. Their air defense systems gone. Coastal surveillance gone. Missile and drone storage gone. Over 170 targets, 2 straight nights. We actually don't yet have the CENTCOM readout for what happened last night, which would have been the 3rd night. But if it's anything comparable to what we've seen in the first 2 nights, it would have been nothing short of devastating. And simultaneously, this is actually the part that doesn't get enough attention. The United States Treasury Department, Scott Bessent, revoked the general license that had been allowed, or that had been allowing Iran to sell oil through anything resembling a legitimate commercial arrangement. Whatever financial breathing room the ceasefire framework had been providing, right? That was the carrot part of the negotiations. Whatever marginal revenue the regime had been generating in the weeks since the memorandum of understanding was signed on June 17th, that has now all been entirely frozen. It's gone. Iran's only remaining revenue lifeline, worth billions per month, $500 million a day, has been cut off at the exact same moment that 170 of its military installations are being systematically reduced to rubble. The economic and military tracks, or if you want to use your alliteration, the money and military tracks of this pressure campaign just merged into a single simultaneous escalation, a rear naked chokehold that is literally forcing Iran to tap out. And they're going to have to do that again. The combined effect of that convergence on Tehran's decision-making calculus is precisely what the next several days are going to reveal. It's not a matter of if they're going to tap out. It's only a matter of when. If you've been with this channel since this conflict started back in February, and if not, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You would know that we have been arguing that Operation Epic Fury, together with Operation Project Freedom, right? That was where U.S. forces were escorting oil tankers safely through Hormuz. That was an intricately designed trap to eliminate the one single trump card, the sole solitary point of leverage that Iran had over the entire world. So if you want to take a step back and really understand what's going on here, strategically speaking, in terms of what U.S. forces are doing and how it relates to geopolitics, for 47 years, the Islamic Republic constructed its entire geopolitical identity around a single strategic asset, and that's the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's daily oil supply passes through that narrow 21-mile channel. Coastal missile batteries, underground tunnel networks packed with drones and anti-ship weapons, fast attack boat swarms, radar systems covering every inch of the passage. The entire Revolutionary Guard, the RGC, was built around one premise: make the strait so terrifying, so expensive to challenge, that no American president, no Western power would ever dare push Tehran to the brink. And the key here, the real trump card, was that the threat of shutting the strait down alone was sufficient. The threat was sufficient. They didn't actually have to do it. The threat of $200 a barrel oil, the saber rattling of a mass cost of living crisis paralyzing the West, the threat of a global energy shock no president wanted on his watch. That is how Iran held the world hostage for 47 years. Then Donald J. Trump entered the scene. And he looked at the Strait of Hormuz, and he saw something very different. He didn't see a threat. He saw a trap. A trap that he was going to let Iran walk right into. Here again, if there's one thing you're getting from this analysis that we've been, again, giving since February 28th, this is the single most important thing you need to understand about this conflict. Trump wanted Iran to close the strait. I'll say that again. He wanted Iran to make good on their threats. He wanted Iran to shut down the strait. Because the moment Iran shut down Hormuz, the United States, did we retreat? Did we say, oh, okay, we're sorry. We didn't, just like MSNBC and CNN were saying, oh, we didn't know you were going to do that. Oh, we weren't prepared for that. What did we do? We counterattacked. We counterattacked militarily and economically. The U.S. Navy launched a counter blockade, cutting off Iran's own ports and thus cutting Tehran off from its ability to export its own oil. All the while, simultaneously, U.S. forces launched a sustained escort operation, shepherding commercial vessels right through the strait under armed protection. Iran's Mosquito fleet couldn't stop a single escorted ship. Not one. Nada. Zero. But, and here's the key, but U.S. and Israeli forces first had to defang Iran militarily in order to be able to pull off this blockade. If they didn't, Iran would be attacking our ships left and right. So in the first 2 weeks of the war, U.S. and Israeli forces rendered Iran militarily inert. They destroyed nearly $1 trillion in military infrastructure. They destroyed their air force, their navy, 90% of their missile capacity, their launchers, a significant portion of their drones. And so, having been completely defanged, Iran was powerless to stop the counter blockade, which cut them off from $500 million a day of desperately needed oil revenue. And I've explained it this way for weeks now. This counter blockade, like I just alluded to, it functioned like a rear naked chokehold in an MMA fight, right? And Iran was forced to tap out. Their central bank was in a free fall. Their frozen assets were locked. Gulf states refused to help them or backstop them. Even China, Iran's longtime economic lifeline, quietly walked away as the war dragged on. The math was brutal and it was inexorable. And again, you've got to get this. The longer Iran played their sole solitary trump card, the longer they kept the strait closed, the faster Iran was destroying itself. That's the genius of Trump's counter strategy. He turned Iran's ultimate weapon, their sole solitary point of leverage over the world, into Iran's suicide vest. And so they caved. They had to. They agree. They didn't just agree. They actually offered to open Hormuz originally, right? Several weeks back because of the counter blockade strategy employed by U.S. forces. Iran had no choice but to open Hormuz permanently. And what did we say would happen if they went back to their old shenanigans and started harassing ships passing through the strait? What did we say would happen again? What did we say would inevitably happen after this memo of understanding was signed? U.S. forces were there to reapply the chokehold. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. Again, what we have to understand is that the MOU, the temporary ceasefire, whatever you want to call it, peace deal, doesn't matter, whatever you want to call it, that allowed U.S. forces to reload. We now know that. While Iran thought it was winning breathing room through the MOU, probably by listening to our legacy media, the U.S. was repositioning military assets in the Gulf. U.S. forces quietly surged a third carrier strike group into the Gulf. They deployed additional Marine expeditionary forces, and they began pre-positioning for the next phase because Washington never in a million years intended this ceasefire to be the end of the story. They knew that Iran was going to go back to their old shenanigans. And when they did, Iran was going to have to learn the hard way that rear naked chokehold, that counter blockade never left. And they will just go right back to applying it again. The world will go on. Yeah, the oil price will go a little higher. But have you seen the markets? Still in the low 70s range. The markets are relatively stable. The markets are getting used to this situation, which is exactly again, it's part of the genius of Trump. That's what drill, baby, drill came in. We needed to drill, baby, drill. We needed to get WTI, West Texas oil, on the international market, even larger than what's going on in Saudi Arabia and the like. We needed to flood the market with American oil so as if things get tense in Hormuz, we've got a bypass plan. So the energy markets were given the chance to stabilize after months of Hormuz disruption and uncertainty during the ceasefire. And really, that's what this all comes down to in the end. It all comes down to enforcing a new world on Iran. It's a new world order, not in the dystopian sense of the world. It's a new world where Iran and Beijing, by implication, can no longer weaponize the world's most important energy choke point on the planet to its own advantage. It's all about rendering Iran completely inert, all the while boxing out Beijing from tacitly controlling the Middle East through Iran, and to replace that constant threat with a new Middle East security architecture that will guarantee the region's peace and prosperity for the foreseeable future. And we just saw that architecture come alive in the last few days. This is going to absolutely blow your mind. I told you we got a lot to cover. This is geopolitics par excellence. But first, gang, if you are just joining us, our super chats are up, so feel free to send in your comments, your questions. I'll be happy to answer them on our live stream here. Again, we haven't had a live stream in a couple of weeks. I've been traveling, and so now I am here back in the studio to serve you in any way that I can. Also, did you know that U.S. life expectancy actually peaked at 78 years back in 2014, and global life expectancy is declining for the first time in 30 years? It's because people are aging faster than ever before, and that's largely due to more toxins in the air and chemicals in our soil and food and other external factors that are new to us. Now, what most people don't know is that we can actually fight aging on a cellular level. Scientists have discovered that kimchi actually slows the aging process of human cells, helping to protect them and delay aging. The power of nature can outweigh the power of pharmaceuticals without the nasty side effects. And now you can get all the benefits of kimchi in a simple capsule with Kimchi One. I take Kimchi One every single day. I absolutely love it. Every capsule delivers over 900 probiotic strains, plus antioxidants and enzymes that support your digestion, your metabolism, and your skin health from the inside out. So, yeah, as we age, we become more susceptible to microbial threats, harmful viruses and bacteria. But the beauty is that Kimchi One is a natural antimicrobial, helping your body fight off harmful bacteria, viruses, and even toxins while boosting immunity and energy. And best of all, Kimchi One is 100% made right here in the good old USA. It's all natural. It's non-GMO. So do what I do. Support your gut, protect your cells, and feel younger every day with Kimchi One from Brightcore. Today, you can actually get an exclusive offer by clicking the link below. Just use code TURLEY for 25% off your entire order, or an even better deals, give my friends at Brightcore a call for up to 50% off your order and free shipping to boot. Give them a call right now, 888-597-0233. That's 888-597-0233. We are now getting confirmation that Kuwait and Bahrain are now part of this fight. This after Iran launched attacks on the two countries in response to the strikes by U.S. forces this week. The Bahrain Defense Force actually documented on the ground Iranian missiles and drones targeting civilian neighborhoods, residential towers, international airports, hotels where expats and Gulf civilians live and work. Thankfully, anti-aircraft missiles shot them down. This is Iran's revealed strategic doctrine when it's under military pressure and has no effective military response. It can't strike back in American warships effectively. It can't strike back in American air bases effectively. Its fast attack boat fleet is being progressively destroyed every time it attempts to concentrate. So it strikes the one thing it can still reach: schools, hotels, apartment buildings, the people sleeping in the neighborhoods of the countries that had been trying to stay out of this conflict, like the UAE and Kuwait and Bahrain. This is not an asymmetric military response. It's desperation. It's the deliberate civilian targeting by a regime that has exhausted its military options and is now hoping that enough civilian casualties will generate international political pressure to force a halt. It's the very same playbook that Hamas employed. It's the same approach the Houthis demonstrated in the Red Sea. The tactics the IRGC taught its proxy armies in the region for decades are now being applied directly by the IRGC itself. And how did Kuwait and Bahrain respond? How did they respond? Did they respond the way the Iranians hoped they would, like by pressuring the Trump administration, please, you got to stop this. Look, my people are getting restless. They don't like the fact that, you're bombing fellow Muslims, and you got to really stop this. Nope. Didn't happen. It's happened before in years past, not happening now in this new world. Reports are that Bahrain and Kuwait have responded by joining the fight with U.S. forces. It's being reported that Kuwait and Bahrain have indeed launched retaliatory strikes on IRGC positions across Iran. And this, of course, is it comes from the brilliant new security architecture that Trump brokered back in his first term, called the Abraham Accords, that unites Israeli muscle with Arab money to create a framework for a lasting peace and prosperity in the Middle East for the foreseeable future. This is exactly what's taking place right now, particularly with Bahrain. Bahrain is a member of an official member of the Abraham Accords. It's a security architecture designed to forever sideline Iran and box out China from intimidating the region, China being Iran's principal financier, at least they were before this conflict. And we're seeing it in effect with the Arab world striking Iran directly on Iranian soil in coordination with the United States military. And even at one point in the first wave of this conflict, we have reports that Saudi Arabia had joined in some of the bombing attacks. So Saudi Arabia was fighting side by side with Israel in that first round, that first phase. So the Mullahs' grand strategy has backfired catastrophically. Big picture, what's happening here when all is said and done, right? We want to make sense of the madness here. That's what we're here for on this channel. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Big picture, when all said and done, what's happening here is the spiraling out of this regime. It was a very entrenched regime, half a century. It's been building itself up. It's been getting hundreds of millions, billions of dollars collectively from the likes of Russia and China to build up their arsenal, to build up their military, their nuclear capabilities and the like. Through the IRGC, they have an iron grip over their population because the IRGC exists to protect the regime. It exists to protect the Iranian regime. It does not exist to fight off invaders. It exists to keep the Iranian regime safe from a mass uprising. So what we saw in January with the killing of so many people, again, there's discrepant numbers, some as high as I understand 30, 40,000 of the protesters in the street. That's what the IRGC is for. It's for that. It's there to do that, to protect the mullahs and the regime itself from a mass uprising. And so the crackdown that we've been seeing inside Iran right now, we have to understand, is not necessarily a sign of strength. Yes, they are dug in. But in many ways, this mass backlash against their own population that we've seen only escalate since hostilities began back in February, again, it's a sign of desperation. Since Khamenei's death and the IRGC's humiliation, Operation Epic Fury, the regime has lost all legitimacy. Remember, this was the regime that had been ordained by Allah to destroy the great Satan. There was going to be a great conflict with the West. And when that happened, they were hoping they were going to have a bomb to either protect them from that conflict via a mutually assured destruction policy or possibly even use it. And they would show the world that they are who they claim to be, ordained by God to destroy the godless West. That was their claim to legitimacy. And since February, that claim has been humiliated. And since that claim has been humiliated, the regime has had no choice but to dramatically ramp up its internal repression. More condemnations, more assassinations, more public hangings. And the reason is straightforward. They know that Epic Fury, they know that Trump exposed just how weak They really are. They haven't been ordained for jack. They're just a thugocracy that got exposed for being weak and ultimately inert. The repression, therefore, is not confidence. It's a regime trying to terrorize its own population into silence because it's got nothing else left to offer them. I mean, look at their proxies. That was their regional architecture. The Houthis, they could have joined the fight against the United States on an immense scale, particularly in the Red Sea, and shut down Saudi Arabia's alternative route via the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. They had the east-west oil route that went down through the Red Sea. The Houthis could have shut that down. They didn't. They stayed out of this fight. Hezbollah, they're trapped in a confrontation with Israel every day. They can't do anything against the United States. All of their activities against Israel, and Israel's pretty much shut it down. Syria's gone, right? Syria was very important as a logistics corridor for Iran, sending missiles and weaponry into Lebanon. That corridor is gone. That's the primary reason. That's since Abad is gone. That's one of the primary reasons Trump just pulled all sanctions from Syria. Syria is now on our side. Assad, I should say. I'm sorry. Now that Assad is gone, Assad is just hanging out in Moscow right now. So Iran's entire network of regional influence has either collapsed or it's been neutered. And the isolation for Iran now is total. And we saw it particularly, it was humiliating, but we saw it particularly at Khamenei's funeral this week. Iran's closest partners sent only low-level delegations as representatives. Yeah, there were several countries, 60, 70 countries that came to pay the respects, but they sent their grunts over. They didn't send any major leader over there. And then perhaps the most humiliating point of the funeral totally is the fact that Mojtaba Khamenei, the supposed new supreme leader, their own version of their auto pen, the very son of the man being buried, didn't even show up. I mean, whether he's alive or not is irrelevant at this point. The funeral was an absolute diplomatic embarrassment. Iran hit Qatar as part of their response this week, which Qatar was helping mediate relations with the U.S. and Israel. They hit the UAE, which they had normalized relationships with. And all throughout this conflict, not a single Arab government mobilized its street against America or Israel. No mass protests in Riyadh, no riots in Dubai. The mullahs could not activate the Arab street on behalf of their own cause. That, again, is a humiliation beyond anything, culturally speaking, that we could emphasize here. And then there's the economic picture. I mean, we barely brought that up. The economic, it's nothing short of catastrophic. It was catastrophic before the first bomb dropped. Word on the street is the IRGC now, obviously, is struggling to pay its own soldiers, which is very, very bad because they are a patronage system. That's one of the primary, they don't just use ideology. They also use a patronage system to literally buy loyalty. And when you have any more money to buy that loyalty, guess what happens to it? The loyalty seems to go bye-bye, right? Reports are that there was actually a debate, bit of a mutiny among IRGC officers about why Hezbollah fighters were getting paid while Iranian soldiers weren't, right? So they have to choose. They've got no money. So whatever money they do have, they have to choose who gets it. Again, word on the street is the regime has been recruiting children into the IRGC out of manpower desperation. I mean, inflation is literally through the roof. Their currency, the real, is worthless. Basic services are collapsing. And now the Treasury has cut off the oil revenue lifeline simultaneously with the military strikes. Two pressure tracks merging into one, money and military. That's the chokehold. And then there's the deepest wound of all in the end, and that's the generational divide. I mean, seriously, just look around the Middle East and how the Middle East has been conducting itself now, just say the last 5 years. Azerbaijan and Armenia are moving toward modernization. The UAE, with its ambitious development agenda, they just left OPEC. They want to be the go-to Middle Eastern oil power in the region, so they're going solo there. Saudi Arabia's got their Vision 2030. It's designed to benefit young people and be the economic center of the Middle East for the rest of the century. They are sick of these non-ending wars. They are sick of the ideology. They are sick of all the unrest. They want their region they want Dubai to spread throughout the entire region. They want peace and prosperity, and the Abraham Accords as the roadmap to that. In contrast to that, look at the Islamic Republic. I mean, look at it. They delivered nothing but a constant revolution that its own people no longer believe in anymore. The regime is forcing compliance through symbolism and repression. But it faces a generation that's completely checked out, and it has absolutely no tools to win them back. And it's turned to China and Russia as their chief financiers to guarantee that they'll even still have any relevance in the region. So the bottom line is this. For a military campaign this short, the United States and its allies have done more structural damage to the Islamic Republic than anything we have seen in 47 years, since 1979. And they did it without ground troops. They did it without occupation, just air power, naval blockade, economic strangulation, and a little pressure from the Kurds in the West, for sure. Thousands of Kurdish troops are putting a lot of pressure on Iranians right now. And the systematic dismantlement of every military asset the regime had left. And now the mission is to make sure it stays dismantled. Every target struck is a target that cannot be rebuilt. That's what CENTCOM is executing, 170 targets at a time. So here's the full picture as of today, as we understand it with the information that we have, and really the honest assessment of where the next phase goes. We've got 170 confirmed Iranian military targets destroyed. We've got Iran's oil revenues simultaneously frozen by the Treasury. Iran's military response has been pathetic, to say the least. It's really been civilian targeting drone attacks when all said and done. And it's failed to produce any military effect. It's provided additional justification for everything the United States is doing. Iran's supreme leader remains invisible for 130 days. Someone inside the regime is making back-channel calls about a deal. We don't know who it is. We don't know if they got the authority to actually deliver IRGC compliance. It's all an open question, but the only one that's begging for a deal right now is some voices within the regime. That leads to the other element, a fragmented Iranian command structure in which hardline IRGC commanders are making operational decisions independently of whatever nominal civilian authority exists. They're just now absorbing the largest sustained American strike campaign of this war, while simultaneously being snuffed out with any revenue. $500 million a day, losing coastal military infrastructure, and losing the maritime options that represent its last remaining leverage. So the question now is whether any person in this regime, obviously particularly the one who reportedly is calling American officials desperate for a deal, can anyone in this regime actually deliver something that finally brings this chokehold that's around them in the counter blockade and now a very aggressive offensive against them, bring it to an end? Is there anyone in the regime that finally recognizes and accepts that the old world, literally the old Cold War world that once existed, that provided the platform where Iran could threaten the West with shutting down Hormuz, Is there anyone inside of the regime that recognizes that that old world where you can pit Israel against the Arab Gulf countries against each other by just bringing up one word, Palestine? Does anyone inside that regime recognize that world is now dead? That world is over. Certainly, there's some influencers on our side that don't recognize that world is over. Does anyone inside the regime recognize that world is over? I mean, the mullahs have been panicking for months. What's changed in the last 48 hours is that the panic is now quite visible from the outside in the civilian targeting drone responses that reveal an absence of effective military options in contradictory public statements of maximalist defiance issued simultaneously with private back channel calls begging for a deal, and just in their pathetic military response and all of this, just it's a whimper. And in just the geographic expansion of the American strike package to include that Chabahar, and systematically dismantling every coastal military asset the regime has remaining. A new world is rising. We've been talking about it, obviously, for many, many years on this channel. But a new world, a civilizationalist world, is rising. And the only question that remains here is whether anyone inside this regime, this old regime, wants to be part of this new world, or whether the regime has decided to die along with the old world they helped create. That's what we'll be looking for in the days ahead. Over to you, gang. Over to you. Our super chats are up. Fire away with your questions and comments. I will be happy to answer them right here on this channel. Also, one of the most frequent questions I do get asked by our audience is this: Dr. Steve, is now really the right time to buy gold? And it's a fair question. Gold has had a tremendous run. Silver, too. It's been moving right along with it. So naturally, people wonder, well, did I miss it? But I actually think that's looking at gold the wrong way. You're looking at gold as a stock rather than as a commodity, rather than as a true form of money. In other words, the real question isn't whether gold has already gone up. The real question is whether the reasons for owning it have changed. So think about where we are today. Central banks continue buying gold at record levels all over the world. Global debt continues to explode. Geopolitical tensions obviously aren't going away. These are the very trends that we've been talking about on this channel for years. And if those trends haven't changed, why would the case for owning physical gold and silver have changed? So that's why more people are taking a closer look, not because they're chasing price, but because they're responding to what's happening in the world. Some are purchasing physical gold and silver directly. Others are moving a portion of an IRA or 401k into a gold IRA as part of their long-term wealth protection strategy. That's one reason I trust Augusta Precious Metals. What I appreciate is that they don't try to convince you to buy anything. They start by helping you understand your options. So they'll explain how purchasing physical gold or silver works. They'll show you how a gold IRA works if you're using retirement funds. And they'll answer your questions, and then they'll let you decide what's right for you and your situation. Now, if you'd like to learn more, go to turleybuysgold.com or text Turley to 35052. That's 35052, and request Augusta's free guide. Because in my view, the question really isn't whether gold has already moved. It's whether the reasons for owning it have changed. And from where I sit, they haven't. So give our good friends over at Augusta Gold a chat, and you'll love how they're going to bring clarity to your questions. All right, what do we got, Josh? What do we got? Vaughn Cassie, Dr. Steve, do you feel the Democratic apparatus chose Graham Plattner to win back all their white male working class voters? If so, did they inadvertently choose someone that they felt represented this demographic? Vaughn, that's a great question. Dang. So that's a very good question. Did Graham Plattner, was he a mirror of how the Democrats see white working class men? In other words, white working class men are basically, Nazi sexual assaultists, rapists, whatever, whatever the latest accusation is. It's got to. It's got to. Yeah. No, that's very perceptive. It's got to. I think that's very. I love that. You're showing how Democrat psychology ended up getting embodied by Graham Plattner. And what's their psychology? They see white working class men as a bunch of Nazi scum, women hating scum. And so what did they do? They recruited a Nazi woman hating scum as a candidate to try to reach out to that audience, to that constituency. Maine is inordinately white working class. Maine is one, as I understand, it's one of the whitest countries or states in the country, and it's also highly working class in terms of its economic and professional demographic. And so that must be how they view white working class folks up in Maine. They're just a bunch of women-hating Nazis. And Graham Plattner was perfect for it. But, of course, the pressure of it was too much when it all got exposed. He still hasn't dropped out, to my knowledge. He may have since the live stream began. But he's really holding this party hostage, is he not? I love it. That's a great question, Vaughn. Bravo. Rock Dog, still black pillish, Dr. Steve. We got the Communist Control Act in 1956. Trump and the DOJ could remove all these commie clowns from office. Now, why isn't the DOJ taking action? Good question. Now, in fairness, Trump has said they are going to be taking action. We will never allow communists to take over our country. So we just have to be patient and wait. You know this. You know the DOJ process is slow and arduous. We know that. You just have to you have to take your time with it. And just be patient and let the process play out. Again, that's what makes the presidency so cool. It's just executive orders. He cracks down on this thing. And again, what is it? It's the judiciary process. It's the legal process that tries to slow it all down. But I have a feeling Trump's he's gonna crack down for sure. Robo Guy, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know if the SAVE Act will get passed before the midterms with Thune trying to run out the clock. Any idea what Trump should do with the upcoming midterm convention, just in case? Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I mean, he's got EOs in place. He's signed EOs that have limited mail-in ballots. He's sending key DOJ and FBI figures to key precincts that have been inundated with accusations of fraud over the years. That's going to be happening. And again, I think he's got the voter ID. I think he's already signed, if I recall, the voter ID EO, or he's got one ready to go. But yeah, I mean, Thune has yet to learn that this is a new party. This isn't the party of parliamentarianism. This isn't the party of institutionalism. This is the party of fight, 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 and win, win, win. That's Trumpism. Trumpism is using political power in such a way that guarantees you keep it. And of course, I mean, you could do that in corrupt ways like the Democrats are doing, or you could do it in ways that win the hearts and minds of the vast majority of the country. And MAGA has won the hearts and minds of the vast majority of the country. We have poll after poll after poll showing that. But most people, I mean, these are 80-20 issues. They want the border secured. They want mass deportations. They want manufacturing brought back. They want drill, baby, drill and energy independence. They want biological males kept out of women's sports. And they sure as heck want voter ID when someone goes to vote or register. And only citizens, verifiable citizens, registered to vote. These are all 80-20 issues. And Thune is dealing with the Senate that, again, is living in an old world where backroom deals dictate the values and interests and concerns that are defended in the halls of the elite. And what they have to learn now is we're in an era where the people are reasserting our values, interests, and concerns. We expect them to implement those values, interests, concerns in past legislation. And it's Thune that's got to figure out how to bring someone like a Lisa Murkowski or Tom Tillis to the table. And if you got to buy their vote, you buy their vote, right? Don't you want this wonderful bridge, bring all these jobs, to your constituents? And by the way, it's going to have your name on it forever. There's ways of doing this, and Thune doesn't seem to be, he doesn't seem to know the art of the deal. And that's what's making Trump so upset. But I do think Trump has I think they could spin, at the very least, they could spin it from the vantage point of vote for the party where the vast majority are determined to get this SAVE Act passed, versus don't vote for the party where every single member, for the exception of Fetterman, depending on what day he gets up, he's going to turn Republican eventually, and then he'll vote with us most of the time. That's just the way a team player works, caucus member works. But versus the party where every member is voting against it. So there you go. Well, a question, Dr. Steve. When does Trump rightfully secure the 1972 gold medals for the men's basketball team against the Soviet Union to get an apology from the IOC? Thank you, Will. I don't know. You're ahead of me on that one, Will. Wow, that's from right field. I call it right field there. I don't know, my friend. I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with it at all. So you have to inform me what's going on there. Robo Guy, I wish Trump and Mike Lee would just physically remove Thune, then constantly demanding on Truth Social and X. I don't think it's enough, and actual action needs to be taken. No, I hear you. It's hard to remove a Senate leader in that chamber. I believe it. I mean, getting rid of McCarthy in the House was quite the feat. It was pretty impressive, but getting rid of a Senate majority leader is very, very difficult. It's not going to happen. What you can do, he's up for re-election 2028. What you can do is primary him, get rid of him, and he's South Dakota, if I recall. They vote Republican by +30. It's a +30 red state. So there's what we're learning increasingly is that, and this is the lesson that John Cornyn of Texas learned the hard way, as did Bill Cassidy in Louisiana. In solid red states that vote Trump by double digits, we are not tolerating rhinos anymore. Rhinos are dead. We're going to get rid of Lisa Murkowski. It's just a matter of time. But rhinos are dead in solid red states. Solid red states are ground zero for turning the legislative branch into MAGA. Remember, MAGA is a presidential movement. It's an executive movement. Make America Great Again is Trump. So right now, this is where I'm sorry, I push back against my constitutional purists and libertarians. Right now, this is not a legislative movement. It is not translated into a congressional majority that is fully MAGA, or into a Senate that is fully MAGA in terms of the Republican Party. It hasn't translated. It is 100% executive driven, and it is EO driven. And as long as Supreme Court says those EOs are constitutional, dudes, Tom Massey on that, hit the road, man. I got no use for your obstructionism. We are fight, win through the executive branch. What we're trying to do is translate that kind of enthusiasm, power, and unity into a legislative movement. And the ground zero for that are solid red states. So Thune's days are numbered if he does not get this passed. He's going, I can assure you of that. He's going down, and he will be replaced by a very strong MAGA can, just the way John Cornyn is getting replaced by Ken Paxton, thoroughly MAGA. When I was at Mar-a-Lago, so was Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton has stood by Trump's side, and Trump has stood by Ken Paxton's side in all of their insane litigation problems and issues. Robo Guy, by the way, I heard a federal judge overruled the one trying to strike down the citizenship database EO Trump signed. So if nothing else, hopefully that should help us a bit for the midterms, for sure. Again, I'm seeing this. Yes. Yes. The citizenship database is perfectly within the purview of the executive branch, and in our federal system, yes, states do have to comply with a citizenship database. The idea that they don't have to comply with that makes citizenship irrelevant in many respects, or at least it chips away at the relevance of citizenship. And I don't see the Supreme Court getting involved with this and overturning that EO. So exactly, we're now finally getting used to how the Democrats planned to usurp Trump's executive power, and that was through Article 3 power. And that was literally destroyed. That was shot down by the Supreme Court. I thought it was right around this time last summer, wasn't it? When they had the ruling, the 6-3 ruling, that federal judges, regional judges, do not get to make rulings that apply to all states. A judge in Massachusetts cannot tell how the people of Texas how to conduct, say, for example, their affairs, and that we've seen I'd say 80-90% of the federal judiciary honoring that decision. So they overturn these activist judges, clueless, ridiculous, legally illiterate decisions. They overturn them very quickly within literally a matter of days or weeks. So yeah, good observation, Roboguy. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, based on what's happening, do you see the Shah returning to power soon? He certainly could. Pahlavi has, he's got everything you would need for some kind of return of the king mythology to reawaken in the hearts and minds of many Persians, Iranians. So we could certainly see something like that. And it would certainly have U.S. and Western backing, and of course Israeli backing, as well as backing among the Gulf countries. So again, we'll have to see how it plays itself out. Texas and La Shock. What do you think was the biggest surprise for the administration with regard to Iran? Biggest surprise for the administration? That's a very good question. I think the big surprise, I'm shooting from the hip here. I don't have any inside baseball information, but I think they were very surprised at how Iran lost the Arab streets. So in every major conflict in the Middle East that involved either the United States or Israel, both, you would see massive demonstrations rise up in Cairo, in Riyadh, in Jordan, in Islamabad. You would see what we call the Arab streets. And the Arab streets, what Iran was able to exploit was the humiliation of the Palestinian people at the hands of Israel. Sorry, I should say the perceived humiliation just coming from them. Not saying I'm trying to be descriptive, not prescriptive, but the perceived humiliation of the Palestinians at the hands of the Israelis and the IDF and Mossad and so forth, and just the general humiliation of other Arab nations trying to take on Israel. That was a flashpoint for them emotionally. So if there was ever any serious combat that broke out in the region, hostilities via the U.S. and Israel, Iran was always able to ignite and inflame passions exploding all throughout the Arab streets of the Middle East. And we didn't see any of that in this conflict. Any of it. Both the United States and Israel teamed up to take out Iran, the Iranian regime, and the Arab streets were quiet. That's stunning. Again, that's why I got very I'll say upset, but very disappointed in the so-called analysis that was coming out from some of our influencers and podcasters that were playing off this old, it's the Jews kind of playbook, rhetorical playbook that Iran ironically would play and provoke. It was stunning to me. They went to that playbook when that playbook is part of a world that just doesn't exist anymore. It was actually part of an old Cold War world where China and Russia would help inflame those attitudes among Middle Eastern countries, the Arab streets, as we say. So they loved it when the Arab streets filled up with passionate protest, often violent, against the West and Israel. That's gone. Those days are gone. So that's incredible. It shows an extraordinary change has happened. And the Abraham Accords embody that change. The Middle East wants peace and prosperity, and they want their civilizations to be able to flourish. And they believe that Trump and his civilizationalist sort of networked multipolar vision for the world is precisely the way to go. They were leaning towards BRICS during the Biden years because they just saw America in total decline. Biden embodied that decline. Well, those days are over. America's back. And they decide that they want to hook their wagons on with America and an America-led networked multipolar civilizational order. So, Gabriel Mainville, keep doing your good work. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you very much. God bless you guys up at the Great White North. We'll see what happens to Alberta, right? My, oh my, exciting stuff. Rebel Squirrel, Dr. Steve, what about Erdogan and Turkey? Do they fit into the new Middle East? That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Erdogan with, as I understand it, the counterpart is this. The more power that Iran has, the less power and influence Turkey has. The less power and influence that Iran has in the region, the more power and influence Turkey has. So Turkey is definitely on the forefront of all of these negotiations. Turkey's on the forefront of the new Middle Eastern architecture. They haven't signed on to the Abraham Accords as of yet, but they will. I mean, remember, Trump toyed with that. He threw that out as a little trial balloon a few weeks back, saying, after the ceasefire, I think all the countries now, all the Arab countries should be, although they're in Turkey, obviously they're Turks, but they should all be signing on to the Abraham Accords. Bahrain, which is I think they're half, maybe 60% Shiite. They're part of the Abraham Accords. They're very anti-Iranian. So this is not, it's very interesting. It's not like Shiite versus Sunni, or it's not, Islam versus the godless West or Israel or anything like that. It's not working out that way. It's more, again, it's more civilizational. It's more the Persian Islamic Shiite civilization as it's been defined over these last near half century versus the GCC civilization states, the Arab states, and this new sort of theocratic Israel as it's getting more and more right wing, because the Haredi Jews are the ones that have been having kids. I think they're now more than 50% of the Jewish population in Israel. I think they're 30% of the overall population in Israel, because of course there's Palestinians and there's others than Israelis and Jews and so on. So I just think this is much more civilizational, and Turkey and their neo-Ottoman aspirations are on the forefront with it. But Turkey could be either, they can be obstructionists, or they can be deal breakers. They could be deal makers in the process. They have their own insight into the Middle Eastern world. But the fact that this all happened when Trump was in Ankara, I don't think that was coincidental. So I think Erdogan is probably right there with Trump. And he's going to be a major influencer in the architecture of the region, definitely. The RGC, and so the simple logic, the RGC are like the SSS at the end of World War II. Yeah, I think Victor Davis Hanson has been making that argument. That's why I much prefer looking at the historians and their analysis than some of these geostrategists, because sometimes the geostrategists are just so off, they just don't actually understand what's really happening. And because so much of the information of what's happening is, classified. So they just don't know. And so they're taking guesses, and oftentimes their guessing is wrong. Where historians like VDH and others, they see patterns. And I love the way you're talking about this very simply, logically. The pattern is desperation. Remember, it took a while for the Soviet Union to fall, but it was already, many had already seen it in the 70s, the Brezhnev era. It was falling, but it took a while. Took another, nearly 20 years. Fell in November of 89 in Eastern Europe, and then it took another 2 years, December of 91, for the Soviet Union itself to fall. But when they fall, and boy, do they collapse. They fall fast, when it hits critical mass. And I think it's something comparable. I think you're right. That's at least what VDH is saying. He's seeing, if I recall, it was VDH. He's saying you're seeing very, very similar, actions, practices, patterns among the IRGC as you were seeing among the Gestapo at the end and the SS of the end of World War II. And probably you are. So, but it's not on strength. I mean, anyone who's running around saying, that this is actually a war. I mean, even to call it a war, I do. I mean, it's just part of the parlance, but it's not even a war. It's a good old fashioned ass kicking the likes of which we have not seen in a long, long time. And Trump has resisted sending in ground troops. The old world playbook, and he just knows we have a technology. We have a 5G warfare that just doesn't, that can fight differently now. I mean, we literally have drones and robots fighting at this point. It's pretty amazing stuff. Will O'Toole, Dr. Sue, could you explain the Trump account? And can future grandparents contribute? Thank you. Wow, got me on one there. Because it's really right. Didn't it go public this week? And I just have to get in with that. So what I'm assuming, and again, this has to be corroborated. But what I'm assuming is that it's a typical kind of savings account. So you get educational savings account, you get health savings accounts, and what these are is the money the government gives you, the taxpayer money, gives the citizen money, puts it in an account, and then you can grow it. You could put it in the stock market and so forth. You can grow it. And then whatever you don't use to pay off either your educational expenses, your healthcare expenses, obviously rolls over and it accumulates into the next year and the year after. So it's a way of being able to cut out the middleman, which are in your insurance companies, certainly like with the healthcare industry, and cut out the middleman with the public school system and these horrible school boards and the like, where so much of the money is getting sucked up into the bureaucracy. I mean, we're talking the majority of the money gets sucked up by bureaucrats, right? I mean, there was one study, what was it? It was only a few cents per dollar that for any government program that actually went to bona fide recipients. Most of the money gets sucked up, as we're seeing, like with USAID and so forth. It gets sucked up by the bureaucrats. It's a business model. And so what savings accounts, again, either education or healthcare, ESAs, HSAs is there a way of bypassing any bureaucratic middleman, put the money directly into the recipient's account, and then they can grow it, and they can use whatever money they need from there. They can use it when they need it. There's no insurance company that tells them when they can spend or what they can, or what the government's going to pay for, what the government's not going to pay for. And you can only spend it on, it can only be used on, the industry specific to the savings account. It can only be used on schooling, but as any school you want. If you want to go to a public school, great. If you want to go to a private school, great. Any school you want. You want to go to a religious school, you want to go to second school, any school you want. It's your choice. There's no middleman to get in the way, but you got to spend it on educational expenses. Or you can go to any hospital you want. You don't have to have an insurance company, or you can have any procedure you want. No one's going to get in between you and your doctor in that sense. So that's what I understand is the Trump account, and he's doing it with prescription drugs as well. Robo Guy, by the way, hope you had fun on 4th of July. Saw the New York City Maritime Show and fireworks on TV. Was grinning that Mamdani's plan backfired. Wasn't that beautiful? We did a video on that. I did. I was actually in New York. I was on Lake George, and we were on a old school river cruise, or in this case, lake cruise. Lake George is huge. And we saw the fireworks, which was just wonderful and beautiful and incredible, and met some people out there too that watched the show. So it was really a wonderful time with family. And just I've been working a lot with the classical school movement, international classical school movement. So it was nice to kind of take a little break and just enjoy. Texas and La Shock. So we know the pendulum will swing eventually. So when do you think we'll start seeing old school action heroes again? If not from Hollywood, who do you think they'll come from? That's a good question. Old school action heroes. Well, I guess the question is, how old school, I love the Incredible Hulk. He was my favorite growing up. I actually liked the TV show, Lou Ferrigno and all that, who's still in amazing shape. I don't know if you've seen that, the bodybuilder. Lou Ferrigno, I think it was in his 20s when he did the CBS Incredible Hulk show. And I think he's in his 70s now. Has it been 50 years? Oh, gosh, I'm getting old. And he looks amazing. Much better than Arnold, I must say. When Arnold went Greta while he was a governor, that's when I think he just went downhill. It's a good question. What we're seeing today is a true remythologization, and the Oswald Spengler, the German scholar, noticed throughout history that when civilizations looked like they were faltering and reaching their end, there is a yearning for what's often referred to as a Caesar figure. There's a yearning for a champion to rise up to fight and win on behalf of the people. And so we saw this in Rome. We saw this in Byzantine period. We've seen this all over the world. And I think we're in that period. We're in that period where obviously we're looking for a champion to rise up and fight and win. And obviously that's not John Thune. And obviously that wasn't Mitt Romney, obviously, right? And of course it's not a single Democrat. Although John Fetterman looks like he's ready to fight and win. So this is why I've said that Trump's appeal is mythic in nature. It's not, you're just wasting your time trying to pin him to some kind of scandal that took down someone like Graham Plattner. Or whatever other, Anthony Weiner or whatever, Epstein is not going to bring him down. This scandal or that scandal is not going to bring him down. The Iran war is not going to bring him down. His appeal is mythic in nature. He transcends that. And so as long as he is seen as the emblematic fighter and winner for the people, he is going to be the face of the Republican Party. And I think we're starting to see something like that in our culture as well. Because what we're seeing right now is Disney and all these other, Hollywood, Netflix institutions, they recognize that the stories of old, the great heroic tales, they recognize that that's what the people want. But the problem is that the people in Disney and Hollywood hate those stories. So they're butchering them. And so what you're looking for, Texas on the Shock, is you're looking for a media company that can bring back the heroes of old that Western civilization craves for, rightfully speaking, because we want to fight and win. But it's got to be a media company that loves those stories and sees their civilizational value, because we want strong men who are patriotic and who are going to fight for faith, family, and freedom. That's what we want. Those are the kinds of men we want. So I don't know. Daily Wires seem to try to set themselves up as that, but I understand their business model. Wasn't working very well. I may be wrong. I'd love to see that. There is, I think, Canon Press has been doing some work on reviving the great old heroes. Faithfully speaking, ironically, Japanese anime is doing it. From a more Japanese, traditionalist Japanese sentiment. But of course, they've never lost it. Japan is one of the most traditionalist societies in the world, as well as technological. So they're very Star Wars-y. They're very archaeo-future. So if you're not an anime fan, you may want to be. And see to the extent to which the old heroes are coming back through anime. Because those companies seem to love the old stories and want to present them well. But that's what we're looking for. The audience is here. You're absolutely right. The pendulum is swinging. The audience is here. We want heroes again, real bona fide heroes. And we want media companies to tell the great stories of the heroes and inspire us to heroic acts, but who love those stories rather than despise them like the woke left does. Pranakasha Productions. It must be Indian. God bless Modi. Super duper chat. Thank you, sir. Very, very appreciated. And all the best. You got BJP party and all. Great stuff going on in India. Amazing stuff going on in India as a rising civilization state. And Mark Overman. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for these super chats, guys. You don't even ask who, just little gifts of support. It's very, very appreciated. Kevin, good to hear from you, my friend. Will Trump cancel the USMCA and place 100% tariffs on Canada after deal with Mexico is done? Then offer Alberta. This is interesting. I think you're giving us a policy suggestion in the form of a question. I think you're being prescriptive here, which I love. Then offer Alberta 10% tariffs and defense deal, 51st statehood, if Alberta votes for independence on October 19th and makes that the issue. That Kevin, dude, you are rocking, man. I don't know the answer to that. Certainly Trump has no time for Carney and the liberals in Canada. He just sees them as, just a continuous sort of pride parade. He just sees them as just pathetic, and he's got no time for them at all. Now, Carney was whispering a couple of sweet things in Trump's ear at the latest G7, at least that I noticed. Right, it was in France, and so they seem to be very amicable with one another. Carney, of course, Trump infuriated Canadians when he started talking about this 51st state stuff. And I think in many ways it costs, and I know many of our Canadian patriots here think it cost Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives the election, because what it did is it caused much of the population that would vote for, what are they, the NDP, if I recall, New Democrat Party, to sort of think strategically and cross over and vote for the Liberals. So because the Conservatives actually did very well in that election, but they did well historically in relation to the left splitting its vote between the Liberals and the NDP. That didn't happen this last election. It's largely because of Trump kind of poking Canada to be the 51st state. Why he did that, I don't know. He's got his reasons. I trust him on it. But I was just talking to a Canadian at one of the conferences, and it was his opinion that it cost Poilievre the election. So I don't know what Trump, I got to be honest, I don't know Trump's strategy with Canada. I just don't. And how it relates to the USMCA, which replaced NAFTA, right? So we'll have to see. But I think you're thinking of a very real option there. Let's smack Canada with massive tariffs and this is the key. I think they would have to hurt Alberta, but then offer Alberta relief through independence. And then we'll have to see, like you said, then it's all the carrots. What kind of carrots can you offer them to kind of woo them away from Ottawa? Certainly, I mean, the very fact that Trump was a huge supporter of Brexit, it just shows he hates the old liberal international institutions. He hates them. And he sees Ottawa as just one of the worst as part of that complex. So anything that can shatter it, let's go for it. So, yeah, I mean, you're obviously thinking very geopolitically. Kevin, should Trump back Malay's Argentina claim of Falkland Islands from UK if Argentina offers U.S. Navy an air base? Look at, you're always thinking in terms of carrots. I love it. Air base there. Should we just take Diego Garcia? Yeah, because we share it with Britain. And that's in the Indian Ocean, if I recall. Good question. These are great questions. Again, I tend to be, so you're kind of pushing me in a direction where I'm often a little squeamish. I like to be very descriptive rather than prescriptive. I like to describe what is happening rather than what ought to happen. And then when I describe what is happening, I like to show it in relation to this shift towards civilizationalism that we're seeing all around the world. And I do like that. I think it ought to have I have no use whatsoever for the liberal international order. So I am absolutely all for and an advocate and prescriptive of civilizationalism. But how that civilizationalism works out, I'm more just a commentator, like a sports commentator. I'm going to tell you what's happening. But what should happen? I get nervous with it. That's not my forte, and it's a limitation in my analysis that I'm just very forthright with. So what I could say is, here's what I think will happen. Whether it should happen or not is a different story. As long as the UK remains mired in their liberal malaise, as long as the liberals have this cloud majority hovering over the UK, Trump is going to make life hard for them. And he will because he values loyalty over everything else, and he's got no use for old world 19th, 18th century institutions or anything like that. So he has no problem, I think, siding with Malay over and against, well, it's Starmer for the next, 2 or 3 weeks, and there'll be somebody else, and they'll be just as bad. However, if Nigel Farage if they do force snap election some way, shape, form, and Reform UK comes to power, Rupert Lowe, for all we know, Restore Britain Party, then that's a different calculus. Then I think he's going to play broker, and he's going to try to bring two what should be two very close friends together, because they both need to honor the civilizationalist commitments of their leaders, as it were. So that's what I think is going on there. And I guess it's the same with Diego Garcia. I think it's the same. As long as Britain remains under the influence of the weenie liberals, and there's pathetic open border, third worldism that they've embraced, sure, he'll probably take Diego Garcia. Sure. Of course, again, whether he should or not that's the thing. Whether he should or not, I can't say per se. I mean, maybe. Right. I guess I tend to lean that way. If Britain has embraced civilizational suicide, as Denmark has, well, then if Denmark has embraced civilizational suicide, take Greenland. What are they going to do about it? Take it. I mean, politics is power. Take it. Right. So I think in the end, it just depends which way, European man, which way are you going to go? If you're going to embrace civilizationalism, then you got a great ally in DC who will help you geopolitically in any way they can, because he values loyalty. But we saw with Giorgia Meloni, you could still have the chops, the ideological bona fides, as it were. But if you're not loyal, he will throw you He'll throw you to the dogs, man. That's what he does. That's Trump. It's loyalty. It's politics. It's hardcore politics. So there you go. QBIE or OB. Sorry. Query. I think I saw that the Q underneath that. Query, most wise professor. I'm a 7th generation Texan. Wow. God bless you, man. Born and bred, hatched, matched, and dispatched in Texas, as I've heard one person say it. The Texas scorecard reported Soros is pumping money into the Texas fall elections. The old Nazi and his son have no business pouring money in our state elections. Amen to that. Talafrico. I have not heard that. That's hilarious. Talafrico beat Jasmine Crockett in the primary. She now is calling Texas is filled with racists. All right. Talafrico is on YouTube begging for money. I see him. I see his ads all over the place. The man's an abomination to natural law. I am an octogenarian fretter as we keep getting blue state refugees. All right. Is that it? Is that going to be I take it the question is what do I make of Soros pouring in all that money? It seems so. Yeah. Okay. If there was a follow-up to that question or let me know. But yeah, I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry. You know, Texas is going to do what they vote. Texas has not voted statewide for a Democrat in over 30 years. Texas has been increasingly going red, not the other way around, even with the left UGs. Now, I know the left UGs sometimes can make areas more blue. They certainly did that in Georgia. But Georgia, and they did that in Colorado. Georgia brought in sort of the Hollywood. People were upset with Hollywood. So Georgia has become, I think, the number 2 state for filming movies in. So they brought in a lot of that industry there, which has unfortunately turned that area blue. And Colorado used to be reliably red, Midwestern state. But this is where a lot of the left-wing realm of California moved in just because it was cheaper and they liked skiing. And they could just get more bang for the buck. They could get, 3 times the acreage in probably 10 times the acreage in Colorado than they could have in California. But in all the other states, Texas and Florida and Tennessee primarily, the left UGs that have been fleeing have been inordinately right-wing. So we saw that in 2018. We have a study that found that native Texans, now again, we would need to corroborate this study. So if you're going, wait a minute, Turley, I don't buy that. I got you. I was blown away by it as well. But there was one study, I can find it for you. You can look it up actually online. 2018, native Texans voted for good old Beto by 2 points over Cruz. It was the left UGs, primarily from California, who relocated that voted for Cruz by like 20 or 30 points. And they made the difference. Remember, he only won by 1 or 2 points. That was a squeaker. That was close. But it was ironically, it was the left UGs that made the difference. It's the left UGs that made Florida double-digit red. Native Floridians were more or less split. But it was, because again, it was, Miami-Dade and so forth. It was a high Latino demographic that was voting just Democrat because that's just the way they were told to vote for the last 30 years, that kind of stuff. That's all flipped. They flipped. Now Miami-Dade's going red. And because they love the machismo of Trump and the more populist Republican Party. And they see the Democratic parties as insane Talafrico, as you say. And then just the massive influx of disaffected residents in blue states, especially during COVID, moving in. And now they're like Gandalfs to the Balrog saying, you shall not pass to the Democrat Party. You are not chasing us here. So that said, I think your state is poised to elect a fully MAGA Republican senator in November. I don't know if it'll be by double digits, but it will be a very comfortable margin. Ken Paxton will win very He's already won 3 statewide elections, so he's got the apparatus. He can do it. Telefrico could try to buy the election with Soros, and it's just going to be a total waste of money, just like it was for Kamala. You can't necessarily buy elections anymore, not with the new demographics and not with the new political realignment that's happening, like I've been explaining, where more and more people are realigning around the nationalist populace. Right now, you may have some perfectly legit, anecdotal evidence of how you've seen, well, this town used to be really, really red, and now it's like purple because of all these new people moving in. And yes, when new people move in, it is an assault, for lack of a better term, on traditional native Texan values, particularly in your region. Texas is gigantic, obviously, right? What are you, 270 counties and so on, and the second largest state by population. You're bigger than most countries. So that's why I had Dan Miller on, of the Texas Nationalist Party, who wants Texas to return to the republic, its own sovereign republic, just because of its energy independence, of its extraordinary business independence. It's one of the largest economies in the world, all that sort of stuff. Yes, when people come in from the outside, they're gonna bring the outside with them. Yes, absolutely. But what we found is just, and I when was the last time I was in Texas? It's been about a year. There was just a resilience of that can-do spirit of Texas, and that faith, family, and freedom spirit of Texas. That's very hard to eclipse. So let me just encourage you with that, because you're a state that's second to none. You know that. You don't need some Yankee like me telling you that. But I mean, you're like the envy of the country, and when the country grows up, hopefully it'll be more and more like Texas. And I think just even with the refugees coming in, save for like Dallas County, or save for Austin, and I mean, most of them are going to want to grow up to be like Texas too. So God bless you, man. God bless your faithful family. Week in Wimpy. Recently, Senator Hawley drilled PM General David Steiner over thousands of pieces of mail. Oh, Postmaster General David Steiner. Sorry, I got my European cap on. Over thousands of pieces of mail found dumped on April 29th. Can we trust this guy to enforce Trump's EO to not deliver unverified ballots? Well, trust but verify. And that's exactly what Hawley's doing. Trust but verify. Yes, we'll trust, but you got to verify. And again, no one is more dedicated to election integrity than Donald Trump. No one. And he happens to be the most powerful man on the planet. So yes, there's going to be attempts to thwart everywhere. But the question is whether the attempts to thwart can overpower the most powerful man on the planet. I don't think they can. So yes, we'll trust, but he's got to have to verify. Mitch Orion, do you think that more Democrats support these socialist candidates? Do you think the more Democrats support these they will push more people? Okay, got it. All right. You have two capital do's in there, and I so do you think the more Democrats support these socialist candidates, you mean these commies, these Marxists, these bona fide third worldists, do you think that will push more people to the right? Yes. And we already had the calculus for that, and it was wokeness. Wokeness demonstrably pushed more people to the right. It turned normies into far right people. So they had no choice. They were, what's his name? Dave Rubin talks about this all the time, right? A young gay man who all of a sudden who was part of the Young Turks. He was on the far left, but all of a sudden found himself boxed in rhetorically as a far right wing, zealot, fascist by these radical leftists. And all they were doing was actually demonstrate, like the original question we got with Graham Plattner. All they were doing was admitting what they really believe of just normal people. Normal people are just these right-wing fascists, that sort of thing. And that's exactly what we're seeing with third worldists. If you're not flying a Palestinian flag, if you refuse to say free Palestine, if you're not genuflecting and denouncing the country for its racist sins of the past that live on today systematically, then by definition, you are the problem. Well, that's going to alienate you from 80% of the country right there. And we see the stats on that. If you divide the country between evenly between left and right, just to make the exercise simple, 50% on the left, 50% on the right. And if you ask the left, do you support these socialist candidates? Half of the left, so that's 25% of the population, half of the left will say yes. But the other half, the Bill Maher half, will say absolutely not, right? The Piers Morgan half will say no way, absolutely not. And if, as he said to J.D. Vance, and if this is where my party is going, I'm leaving. My vote is up for grabs. Now, go to the other side politically, the right, 50% of the population. How many of them support these socialist candidates? Well, it's like 100% say no, hell no, right? You shall not pass, right? So now look at how the politics is realigning now. 25% of the population is all in with them. 75% are not. And then you just have to ask how many of that 25% of left, that Bill Maher left, are willing to vote with the right in order to push back against these radical leftists. Well, all you don't need a lot, 10%, right? That's all you need. Then you got to say, so 10% of 25%, what is that? That's 2.5%. Well, now you have a majority of 52.5%, right? So, or if 20% of that 20 or whatever it is, my math is going quick. So that's now 60% of the population. So yes, it's a demand. That's what helped give Trump the popular vote in 2024, is that so many people who were in the middle or were center left moved right. Not necessarily in the senatorial or congressional elections, which was interesting, but they certainly moved right when it came to the president, and they found Kamala odious, and they'll find her even more odious in 2028. MDE, SCOTUS ruling. Do you think Trump doubles down against their ruling that will settle the birthrights issue? Yeah, I do. I do. He's already talking about passing or signing an EO that bans pregnant people from visiting the country. You got to have your baby. You can't be pregnant. So you enter the country on a visa or whatever. You're here for 6 weeks, whatever. You can't be pregnant. Simple as that. Very, very simple. You can't be pregnant. If you are pregnant, you got to wait till after you have your kid. So that's one way of solving the problem. Yeah. He's made it clear. Jonathan Turley, my namesake, who also thinks this decision on the birthright citizenship thing is absolutely insane. He thinks eventually we're going to need to pass a constitutional amendment to define under the jurisdiction thereof, that clause that excludes people like diplomats and ambassadors and so forth from when they have their kids here. They are not under our jurisdiction. They are in the jurisdiction of their own country. And so neither is an illegal alien by definition. An illegal alien is not under they are under the jurisdiction of the country that they fled or left. So we're going to have a constitutional amendment defining that. But, getting a constitutional amendment passed with 3/4 of states, well, we're getting there. I mean, I did a video on this. With red states, we are getting there. We're getting up to 31, 32, 33 red states. If we can I think we only need 34 to call a constitutional convention. I think we need 36 to ratify, from the state's perspective, to ratify a constitutional amendment. 34 if it comes from a constitutional convention, something akin to that. So yeah, that's hard. An EO would take care of that. Ventus Bruma, my thought about Canada is he wanted the weaker leader for negotiations. Oh, thank you. You're okay. Good. So what I brought up earlier in the conversation was why was Trump, Trump could have had Pierre Poilievre as prime minister, but instead he put Poilievre kind of in an unwinnable situation, got the Canadian population very upset, insulting them with the 51st state rhetoric. I know, I heard it. I went to Scotland with a number of Canadians. Oh boy, I heard they were not happy about that kind of rhetoric. And so voting in Mark Carney was sort of their way of giving Trump the finger, that kind of thing. So my thoughts about Canada's, Trump wanted the weaker leader for negotiations, the one easier to manipulate. He's for America, not Canada. They're the ones who were self-righteous enough to take the bait. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that may be it. I have heard that from people close to Trump that, he knew Poilievre's young. Poilievre will get in there eventually. JD and Poilievre, I'm sure will get along great. But Trump knew that this was a world-altering 4 years, and he wanted the good old-fashioned, establishment, globalist liberal weakness in Ottawa to manipulate. Could be. I don't know, but yeah, that's a good answer. And that's it. All right, gang. Hey, I want you to have a great weekend. Keep coming back to the channel. We got a great interview, by the way, on tomorrow, scheduled tomorrow morning with, I believe it's with Pastor Doug Wilson. I know many of you love Doug Wilson and his commitment to Christian civilization. So when I was out at ACCS in Atlanta, I had a really awesome chat with Pastor Wilson. So I think we're putting that up. And of course, I'm your back porch professor over the weekend. So any big breaking news, you'll be the first to know from my back porch. And I'll give you the analysis that only this channel gives you. Until then, gang, love you guys. Take care.